This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
So if you are afraid of asking for what you need or what you're seeking in your relationships, I hope by the end of this episode, it makes you reconsider. Hey guys, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah. How are you? How goes it? How's your heart space? Sit with that for a second. It's been an interesting turn of events. Just in general, I think everybody's kind of experiencing life in very interesting ways, right? And how we are coping with it, how we're dealing with it, what our support looks like, what it doesn't look like. The reality of things is all coming to a interesting head. And I saw this really cool thread the other day where a guy was saying that he was talking to his buddy about, things that he was going through and like how he's trying to just navigate and figure it out. And his buddy goes, I ain't worried about you. You always got it figured out, etc. And the guy's response was, well, I want you to worry about me a little bit. And I love that because, there is this stigma of, when you're the strong person, when you're independent, when you're doing all the things, I feel like there is a lack of empathy for those people. I think I'm starting to notice that sometimes you will cultivate relationships with people who are possibly not as empathetic, and is not necessarily a hit to them or a charge to them, but if you are so used to doing everything and navigating life in the ways that you need to, right, you will by design cultivate relationships that in certain ways are very low maintenance. This is the talk of low maintenance, where your requirements for others may be very low, right? Very low, superficially, but on an emotional level, it would mean a little bit more to have relationships where it's like the person is concerned. They do have some level of interest about your life or about just what you're going through, and they are participating. And I think we are so fearful of asking for, support, or asking for effort, or asking for, to spend time with someone, asking how to build a relationship. We are so fearful of asking for the things that connect us to what we want because, society, social media, all the things has taught us that, no one owes you anything, or, you're too much, or you don't want to seem needy, and you don't want to, what is it? People are operating in their own space, all the things, right? And what I think it does is it kind of smacks you on the hand. It's saying no, community is no, that's bad, and it's punitive, right? You're punished for it. And I think the punishment in reality is you thinking or developing this construct within yourself that I am too much, I am too needy, I have to do this stuff on my own. No one needs to worry about me. I'm good. I got it. And throughout that process, you're going through a lot. And I will tell you, I think I've said this before in a previous podcast, when you go through certain things on your own, it's naturally going to change you. And I don't think people understand why. But think about it on like a practical level, right? Let's say, heaven forbid, actually I'll use an example. I remember I got really sick. I got really sick a few years back, and, there wasn't anyone around at that time. And the people who were around didn't really come through, but I still had to get medicine, right? I still had to take care of myself. I still had to function. And because of that, that means that I had to mentally have a certain level of fortitude to get through, right? I had to push myself through, which means that by design, I was having to do things through sheer willpower, to make sure that I was able to sustain and survive myself. Okay. And within that, it changes your thought process, because it's like, well, I gotta figure this out, right? It's the I gotta figure it out energy. And when you have to figure things out enough, you change, like your mental capacity changes, and you're kind of running the entire switchboard or the system, right? You're doing everything on your own, and you know how to do everything on your own. And what that can do in return, like, as much as we think that this is like, hyper independence, for lack of a better word, that it's like this badge of honor, it's also this thing of it kind of indirectly tells you that you are not deserving of support. Okay? And funny enough, you will seek out relationships, or you will cultivate relationships with people who reinforce that you are not deserving of support. The reason why is because they may be so accustomed to you being the person that can do everything, the person that's self-sustained, the one that they don't have to worry about, that when you actually come to them with a concern, or you're going through things or whatever, it may rub them wrong. Okay? For better or for worse, some people just emotionally don't have the capacity to have empathy for you, or just know what to do because of their own life experience. And some people are not okay with you having a need from them, right? Because their goal in the relationship is not to necessarily participate or reciprocate in that capacity. And in turn, you start to feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Me having a need, I'm too much, right? I am being, I'm imposing on somebody's life. I'm being an inconvenience in someone's life. And I want to tell you something. Like, I heard somebody say it recently, that you are meant to be an inconvenience to someone in relationship, and is not inconvenience in the ways of like you're making these crazy ass demands on someone, and having them jump through rings of fire to prove how much they love you or care about you. This is any relationship. But to be inconvenient simply means that, hey, you as a person, if someone is in a relationship with you, there are certain things that you may need and that they may need that operates outside of convenience, right? Relationships are not meant to be convenient, okay? They're just not. So if you are always looking to make yourself convenient for others, I want you to ask yourself, am I actually looking for like healthy relationships, or am I looking for people to just like me and think that I'm easygoing, or think that they don't have to worry about me, or think that I'm low maintenance, right? I don't have to be taken care of. Okay? And I think as guys, especially if there's any guys listening out there, like, what do your needs actually look like? What does that look like? What needs are you not communicating? It's really cool. I was having a chat with my therapist the other day about how sometimes I function. I always say it's like, I do so many things, and there's always a conference call in my head, right? There's multiple things that I'm handling and doing at once. And I myself may not realize to what capacity I work. A little bit of perfectionism, all the good stuff. And, I go through this dynamic of I'll figure it out, right? I will figure it out. And when you have that modality, like I don't wear that as a badge of honor anymore, right? I don't seek out relationships where it's like I am the one that's holding it together, or like you never have to worry about me. Not to say I'm always in distress or in a calamity, but just having relationships where it seems like the other person does not really care or have an interest in my well-being. I don't care for those relationships, right? And I've learned that over time, because what we fail to realize is by design you are teaching your psyche, your subconscious, like all the underlyings, all the other workings, that you are not deserving of support. You are not deserving of support. I was even talking to a client recently, and they were like, I wasn't going to show up to session. I didn't want to show up to session because I didn't want you to see me like this, or I didn't want to be crying. I didn't want to have feelings. I didn't want to be human in this session with you. And I told them, I was like, so what do you think that would have helped? If you were to have done that, how do you think that would have benefited you and me? Okay? And what I realize is when we are under stress, when we are under duress, when we are sad, we remove the first things to go are the things that are good for us. Okay, so we'll stop working out. We will stop journaling. I've caught this with myself. We stop journaling. We stop communicating, right? We think isolation is such this cool thing, but in reality, isolation is subconsciously telling yourself that, hey, you are an inconvenience to others when you're like this. So go in your room, lock the door, and don't come out until you are convenient enough. Okay? And that's not true. And I say this with a healthy perspective of there's a difference between someone who is desiring constant attention, right? They are wanting people to bend and contort at their will, right? Very demanding, very controlling, very manipulative to get their needs met, versus someone who is constantly putting themselves in a space of, I'll just lick my own wounds. Okay? There's a very different energy with that.
Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger Delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
And I want you to be okay with asking for what you need, because it's going to indirectly tell you where you need to have boundaries with others. Okay? The beautiful thing about asking for effort or asking for support, or just saying, hey, this means a lot to me, is you get to see how other people are going to respond to that. And if someone in your life you recognize, well, when it comes to their needs, everything is always good, right? When you're intentional with them, everything is fine. But when it comes to them being intentional with you, or at least having an interest in how you are, now you're too intense, right? There's a switch around, okay? And sometimes asking for what you need will show you or reveal to you the dynamics of your relationships and where you need to have boundaries moving forward. Any relationship that's making you feel like you're an inconvenience, moving forward, that relationship should be an inconvenience to you to sustain. An inconvenience in the sense of like, no, this is not even healthy for me, right? As people, yes, we are going to be inconvenient to some capacity. And simply what I mean is that, my relationships in my life, they don't operate on my terms, so to speak. I'm not controlling the dynamic. People have lives outside of me. I have lives outside of other people. However, we look for ways to sustain this relationship because even though we have lives outside of each other, we are still very much a part of each other's lives. And I think people forget that main point, right? To tell somebody that everybody has lives, okay, well, am I a part of your life or am I not? Because if you're showing me or telling me that you have a life, that's you telling me that I'm not in it or you're not considering me in it. So I will remove myself permanently, right? You should not be making room for people in your life who have no space for you. Okay? And this comes down to capacity too. I don't care how much you are able to tolerate, how much you are able to sustain. When you are being shown that somebody does not have the capacity to include you in their life, they're also speaking for you too. You don't have the capacity. Okay. And that's how you get out of this vicious cycle of constantly being in these very lopsided relationships where you feel that having needs is too much, but you are willing to show up for somebody else. I was also talking to a client and they were saying how, when they go through things, they isolate, right? They isolate, they take a step back, they shut down, they do all the things. And I was like, well, why do you do that? And they were like, well, because I don't want people worrying about me, or to me, it just feels weak. I don't want to do that. And it feels like foolish, right? Or pathetic. And then I was like, okay, but you don't seem like that type of friend. I was like, if one of your friends reached out to you right now, what would you do? And I'm like, well, I drop everything and show up for them. I was like, okay, so do you see them as weak, pathetic, and incapable when they reach out to you and they have something going on? And they were like, no. I was like, well, why is that? Why is it? Why does this person get a pass? Why do they have the opportunity to be human, but you have to be a robot? And if you go through life with that kind of modality, I want you to ask yourself, why is it okay for everybody else in the world to have needs and to have challenges and to seek support, but for you, it's a problem? And just because somebody makes you feel that way does not mean that it's wrong, okay? One of the best things you can do is just realize that you have needs. And it is not neediness, it's you having needs, okay? We all need to make money. We all need to eat, right? We all need to have a roof over our head. We all need to have clothes on our body, right? We have needs. As humans, we have needs. And in our relationships, we have needs. And there's a difference between having a need for connection versus simply being needy. Like I said, being needy, demanding, controlling, manipulative, doing all the things to get some level of pleasure, right? That is very fleeting because your core need you haven't figured out or even worked through. But I'll tell you what, being who I am, right? I'll speak for me. Being who I am and navigating life how I have, I realized in a lot of ways, it comes a point in time where you have to be okay with asking for what you need and be very okay with certain people not meeting those needs and being even more okay and eager to set boundaries when you recognize that, okay? Because I've seen a lot of people say, well, yeah, I know I want to always be this person that people can go to no matter what. I don't care if I don't hear from them. They can always come to me. And, that's cool, to each their own, but it's important to be honest about why you do that. Is that you getting your need met, right? If I'm always needed, then I'm never neglected in theory, and I'm not forgotten about, right? This person needs me, which means that I will not be forgotten, or I won't be disregarded. I won't be dismissed. Okay. It makes me feel like I matter versus you having your own needs and being like, you know what? I want to feel like I matter in the space of where I have a need, I have a concern, I'm going through things and people support me. Okay. No matter how uncomfortable it may feel to have a need, be more uncomfortable with this idea of being in relationship dynamics where it's communicated in no uncertain terms. through action or verbally, that your needs don't have a space in this relationship. Okay? Your needs don't have a space. You don't have room to ask for what you need. And sometimes people may try to deny that. However, actions and energy tell you everything, and patterns. Okay? I always say I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I don't care to be. However, I'm very cognizant, very aware. Okay? Very aware. And that helps me, right? It's a blessing. Because now, especially, right, I don't have this level of kind of shame attached to being human. Remove the shame, okay? And understand, if you're looking for true relationships, you have to be truthful in your relationships. You got to ask for what you need, okay? You got to be okay with saying, hey, I'm not doing all right now, okay? And see how somebody responds. And whether or not they have the capacity, that's up to them. But for you, it's important to recognize, what kind of relationships am I seeking? Am I only seeking relationships that I take care of? Or am I also seeking relationships where I'm taken care of too? Because trust me, you can find a lot of relationships where you are taking care of it. It's very easy to find people out here who are very self-focused, okay? Very self-focused, very, on my time and at my convenience. And you can have those relationships. But I'll tell you what, they'll eventually start to wear at you, right? You'll become bitter, you'll become empty, you'll become resentful. You'll also think that your only reason to exist in life is to take care of others and be neglected, and take care of yourself on your own, okay? Worry about me a little bit. Give people the opportunity to worry about you a little bit. Because even sometimes when we don't allow others in our space, in certain ways, we are not giving them the opportunity to get closer to us. And that's a vulnerability thing. Maybe you have an issue with vulnerability. That's something to explore also. Okay? But I want you to at least challenge yourself or think about why you think that it's so necessary in life to not have a need. And all the things that may be being communicated to other people that actually may want to meet your needs, because not everybody's the same, okay? I think this year was great for me because my needs were expressed in very different relationships, and I got to see, right? I got to see. Professionally, personally, I got to understand, okay, was this relationship existing because I was okay with my needs not being met? And truth of the matter is, to some capacity, yes, in a big way. So I set boundaries, okay? And now that doesn't happen as much. And even if it happens in the future, it might be with a different person, but it won't even last as long. All right? So I just want you to think about that. This idea of having no needs and just being hyper independent. And no, worry about me a little bit. Write that down somewhere, okay? And say it to a friend. If you feel like you are always kind of navigating on your own, just say to a friend, hey, look, worry about me a little bit. And you could go into detail of what that means. But stand in that, okay? Take care of yourself. That is a way of taking care of yourself. You were saying to yourself, hey, you deserve to have community, so I'm going to give you the opportunity. And it doesn't mean that everybody's going to show up. However, it means that it leaves opportunity for people to do so. All right? Take care of yourselves, okay? Take care of each other and allow people to take care of you. Take flight.